Hey guys. Well, let's begin. Tonight we wake up half buried in gold sand under a blistering sun that doesn't care your royalty. The Nile murmurs behind you, slow and ancient, dragging secrets downriver. You're groggy, wrapped in linen, and men in leopard skins are already bowing. Someone's brushing your legs with sacred feathers. You don't know it yet, but you're the Pharaoh of Kush, a Nubian king, divine in theory, exhausted in practice. You have absolute power, technically. In reality, you're already behind on sacrifices and the priests are keeping score. To be honest, you probably won't survive this. So, before the lights go out, click like and subscribe, but only if you're brave enough to return tomorrow night. Drop your location and your local time in the comments. We want to know who's staying up with us. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan, because silence makes this story worse, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes to dust, ritual chanting, and a camel chewing something near your head. The guards say it's a holy day. Newsflash, every day is holy. You're a young Nubian king of the 25th dynasty, a Black Pharaoh of Kush, and your life just got infinitely harder. Right now you rule from Napata, not flashy Thebes. But Egypt's shadow looms to the north, and they're watching you like a hawk eyes a limp rabbit. Your ancestors once paid tribute to the Egyptian pharaohs. Now the script has flipped. You sit on their throne. But don't get comfortable. Egypt remembers. Kush is powerful now. Your warriors are feared for their deadly archery and wild, lion-taming bravado. But at home, your advisors bicker, the river floods unpredictably, and there are rumors of a Libyan coalition trying to resurrect their own dynasty. And you're supposed to fix everything before lunch? You step from your reed hut. Yes, not a palace yet, we're working on it. And the air is already thick enough to chew. Sand stings your face like nature's exfoliant. Your sandals are ceremonial, which means they blister instantly. And the people? They're kneeling, but they're also side-eyeing your posture. You walk like a god, remember? Your headgear weighs nearly 7 pounds and balances like a teetering fruit basket. The double crown, white for Upper Egypt, red for Lower, isn't designed for actual movement. It's a political mic drop made of discomfort and bird feathers. Try wearing it while pretending not to faint during sunrise blessings. But let's talk optics. You look fantastic. Lapis lazuli collar, gold armbands, skin gleaming with oil. You smell like frankincense and ambition. The scribes make sure you're always at least symbolically divine. That said, the only thing they can't edit out, the circles under your eyes. Sleep is for the non-defied. The Nubian court isn't some lazy backdrop. It hums with politics, rituals, and enough passive-aggressive poetry to fill a scroll. Your advisors are mostly family, cousins, uncles, stepbrothers, each of them praying to different gods that you trip, cough, or forget a festival. Because here's the deal. If you mess up, they don't just whisper behind your back. They whisper in hieroglyphs. And you know what they say? Hieroglyphs are forever. Already you're being pulled toward the Amun temple. You can't start your day without bowing deeply before the colossal ram-headed statue. You say the words, the priests nod, but your stomach growls so loud it echoes in the incense smoke. Dignity is hard on an empty gut. A random fact. Priests in Kush were expected to shave every hair off their bodies for purity. You've got 3 different stylists debating if your beard should curl like Osiris or hang natural. Historians still argue whether this debate ever really mattered, but trust me, it feels important when 3 stylists are yelling in ancient Meridic before dawn. You try to take control of your day, but the high priest just handed you a clay tablet. Another dream report from a farmer who saw a falcon circling backward. In Nubia, that's either a blessing or an omen of plagues. You're supposed to interpret it with a straight face. You say something vague and wise, probably involving Ra. Everyone nods. You move on. But in the back of your mind, you're wondering if that falcon's still circling, and whether it's circling you. Now, you ride through Napata on a wooden platform carried by sweating servants. Not because you're lazy, it's expected. If your feet touch the ground too often, people whisper that you're not divine enough. Image is everything, especially when half your kingdom still thinks you might be a god. But also, kind of hope you're not, because they're starving and need someone mortal to blame. The platform creaks, someone sneezes, you nod slowly, like every tiny gesture means something. Because it does. One sneeze could mean plague, or divine disapproval, or that the servant just has bad hay fever. Good luck figuring out which. In the marketplace, people chant your name, sort of. Actually, they're mostly muttering it under their breath while trying not to make eye contact. You wave. One old woman throws a handful of barley in your direction. Not quite an offering, not quite a protest. Children scurry to collect it. You pretend not to notice. At noon, the heat becomes unbearable. You return to your quarters, an elaborately carved mud brick compound with woven papyrus shades. Inside, it's 3 degrees cooler and smells like sandalwood and bureaucracy. Advisors wait, clutching scrolls like weapons. More border disputes, more tax reports. One scroll is just a drawing of a broken granary with a frowny face. You think it's sarcasm. You still have to respond. By sundown, you're covered in sweat, politics, and at least one bee sting. The Nile glows red, drums start low and build. Another ritual, another round of proving you're worthy of Amun's favor. You wonder if Amun even watches anymore, or if he's as tired as you are. You slip into a tub of perfume water. Someone hums an ancient lullaby. For a moment, you almost relax, until a messenger arrives to inform you a royal cousin just declared himself true pharaoh near Elephantine. Of course he did. You dry off, slip on a fresh robe, and prepare to bless another harvest festival. Your throne may be gold, but your bones feel like sandstone. And this is just day one. Your back is still aching from yesterday's blessings, when you're summoned at dawn for the ceremonial trample. Sounds intense, right? It's exactly what it sounds like. You walk barefoot over burning hot sand that's been purified, which is just a priestly excuse for not having carpets. Then, before breakfast, you're expected to symbolically stomp on miniature enemies, tiny clay figures of Libyans, Assyrians, even rebellious Nile spirits. Some of them look suspiciously like your cousins. As you perform the ritual, trying not to wince at the heat, the priests chant a list of your titles. You lose count after he who commands the horizon like Ra. One priest sneezes mid-chant. Nobody blinks. But you know, it'll go in someone's dream journal as a possible omen. Again, by the time your feet stop smoking, you're ushered into the royal grooming room. A small army of attendants waits with oils, kohl, and tweezers. Today's beauty routine includes darkening your skin with a blend of ebony resin and crushed carob. Because the darker your skin, the more divine your aura. That's the rule here in Nubia. Meanwhile, the Egyptians up north are still arguing whether you're too southern to be truly sacred. Historians still argue whether skin tone politics actually affected Kushite diplomacy, but judging from your morning mirror, talk, do I look intimidating or just shiny? It sure feels like it does. You sit down. Immediately, 4 women descend on your face. One applies cold eyeliner with a bone stick that feels suspiciously sharp. Another dabs on perfumed oil that smells like funeral incense. Someone flosses your teeth with horsehair. The last one just stares, probably mentally critiquing your cheekbones. Royal grooming is not pampering, it's pressure with extra glitter. Once you're appropriately divine looking, minus a small nick from the eyeliner stick, you pretend not to flinch. You're led to the court for morning petitions. This is where subjects come to beg, flatter, and passive-aggressively suggest you've been neglecting the rain gods. Today's highlights include: for a baker claiming her yeast speaks to her at night, a fisherman demanding compensation for a cursed neck, a child presenting you a frog and demanding a title. You nod solemnly at all of them. The frog gets a tiny necklace. Why not? But just when you think the day can't get weirder, your high advisor, your great uncle, always smelling like old scrolls and camel milk, leans in and whispers, "Time for the initiation." You freeze. You knew it was coming, but hoped they'd forget. No such luck. The initiation for young pharaohs in Nubia isn't just symbolic, it's terrifying. They call it the Broken Trial, a multi-day ordeal that allegedly bonds your spirit to the Nile gods. It involves fasting, isolation in the desert, and being chased, yes, chased, by masked warriors to test your courage. Apparently, running in a loincloth while hallucinating from dehydration is deeply spiritual. You try to object, but Uncle Scrowbreath just smiles. It's tradition. Cut to you, hours later, being blindfolded and dropped somewhere in the desert. The sun beats down, your mouth is sandpaper, and then hooves, chanting, footsteps behind you. You run, you trip. Something howls. Maybe it's a priest, maybe it's a jackal. You have no idea. The dust kicks up around you, glowing red in the dusk. You fall, again, and hit your ankle on something sharp. There's blood. A voice hisses, "Rise like Horus." You groan, and mumble something un-pharaoh-like. Finally, after what feels like a lifetime and a sandstorm, you collapse near a statue of the dwarf god of protection, joy, and oddly childbirth. A priest appears from nowhere, gives you water and chants, he has survived. You wheeze something that sounds like, barely. This is not what they told you kingship would be like. Back at court, you're wrapped in white linen, seated on a small stool, and anointed with oils that sting in all your new cuts. The ceremony's not over. Now comes the Feet of Osiris ritual, where elderly noblewomen bless you by tapping your knees with golden staffs. One misses and hits your shin bone. You smile, you do not scream, you are divine. Later, you're allowed to rest in the royal quarters. A small clay bowl of lentils and honey bread waits. You devour it like a peasant. Your attendants pretend not to notice. You've just completed the trial, sort of, and everyone's watching to see if you'll cry. You don't. You just twitch when someone touches your ankle. As night falls, the stars appear in sweeping rows above your reed ceiling. Nubian astronomy is no joke. You have court astrologers who can track Venus with terrifying accuracy, and one old man who swears Sirius whispered to him during a solar eclipse. To be fair, he might just be lonely. You're too tired to question the stars tonight. Your eyelids droop. But as sleep creeps in, you remember. Tomorrow, you meet the border generals, and the generals are never patient. Especially the one with no eyebrows who calls himself the Hammer of DMLA. For now, you rest, but your ankle throbs, and your mouth still tastes like sand. This is only the second day, and already the throne feels heavier than gold. Your ankle is swollen and someone painted your toenails with lapis-colored polish overnight. No one explains why. Royal aesthetics maybe, or some obscure fertility blessing. Either way, the minute you swing your legs off the bed mat, the pain reminds you that even gods bruise. The morning chant begins again, low, rhythmic, droning. It vibrates in your ribs like a warning. Another day of rulership, another tightrope between divinity and human fragility. You're Pharaoh of Kush, sure, but today is different. Today, you get the crown. Not just any crown, the double crown, the Sekemti. Red and white stacked like a cursed wedding cake on your scalp. Worn by kings who dare rule both Upper and Lower Egypt. You're not just king of Nubia now. You're Pharaoh of all. At least, on paper. Inside the Temple of Amun, the scent of myrrh is thick enough to chew, torches flicker. Columns rise around you like petrified giants. Priests file in with solemn expressions and shaved heads, murmuring praises you can barely keep up with. You sit on a throne carved from ebony and ivory, decorated with scenes of Horus mauling your enemies. You try to look like you believe it. Then the crown arrives. Carried on a red cloth, guarded by two leopard skin-clad priests, its curve gleams in the firelight, almost seductive, until you remember what it means. The red base of Lower Egypt, wide like a basket, the white tall crown of Upper Egypt, straight and rigid. Together, they form something beautiful and cursed. You kneel, technically. Mostly you crouch and try not to wobble. The moment it touches your head, the weight nearly buckles your neck. It feels like shame and legacy and political backstabbing, all molded into two stacked helmets. This crown, it doesn't make you pharaoh, it makes you a target. You rise, everyone chants, drums beat. A hawk screeches above the temple, which someone instantly calls a divine sign. Your feet are numb, your back is drenched in sweat, and you're silently hoping the hawk isn't just circling to find a snack. Fact of the day: the double crown was never actually one piece. Historians still argue whether it was physically worn as a combo or ceremonially referenced. Either way, the message was clear. You rule both lands, and both lands are suspicious. Outside, the people gather. Some cheer, some just stare. A few kneel, most squint. It's midday and your crown's reflecting the sun like a beacon. You're half blinded and smiling anyway. The royal scribes record everything. One is already sketching your expression of firm divinity. You're trying not to sneeze from the sandalwood incense. And then come the oaths. Each noble comes forward. They press their foreheads to your sandals. Some do it gracefully. Others linger too long, like they're checking for cracks. You say the same phrase over and over. By mart and by stone you are seen. Your voice starts to crack around the 12th repetition. Then the high priest hands you a reed scroll. You think it's another blessing. It's not. It's a list of debts. Not yours. The kingdom's. Egypt, it turns out, is broke. Thanks to the previous dynasty's expansion spree. The treasury is emptier than your ceremonial wine goblet. You owe silver to Phoenician merchants, wheat to Assyrian ambassadors, and war horses to, basically, everyone. Congratulations, you're not just king. You're the manager of a failing divine empire, with a really good headpiece. You retreat to your quarters and remove the crown for lunch. It leaves a ring on your forehead. Your servant quickly dabs it with goat milk, another sacred cure apparently. You try to eat, but one of your wives bursts in weeping. She's angry that you let the other wife sit closer to you during the crowning. You didn't even notice. Your spine was screaming from the crown's weight. Now it's a scandal. Court life is a minefield. One eyebrow raise can become a war. While you're managing that, a messenger arrives from Thebes. Egypt's old capital still simmers with resentment. Your rule is tolerated, but barely. The priests of Amun there are split. Half recognize your divine right, the other half call you a southern usurper. You ask your advisor what usurper means in this dialect. He shrugs. It means they're sharpening their knives. The only thing that truly calms you is your lion. Yes, your actual lion. Every pharaoh of Nubia had one, trained from cub-hooked. Yours is named Mecca. She yawns like thunder and nuzzles your knee when she senses stress, which is always. She once bit a treasurer who raised his voice during a budget meeting. He now wears longer sleeves. You lie beside her in the garden courtyard, looking up at the painted stars on your ceiling. It's almost peaceful. Then someone announces a messenger from the Delta. Apparently the coastal cities didn't perform your crowning rites. They claim they weren't informed. You know they were. They just don't want to bow to a Cushite king. Again. You sigh. Hard. Brown may be ceremonial, but the disrespect, that's very real. By sunset your neck is still aching, your face is stiff from smiling through it all. You order your dinner served in silence. No music, no chanting. Just lentils, goat stew, and a honey cake shaped like Horus. You bite his head off first. In bed you touch your forehead and still feel the imprint of the crown. It's not just physical. That crown demands everything. Loyalty, vigilance, ceremony, humility, wrath. On demand. You're not allowed to have a bad day. If you do, they carve it into limestone and call it the teaching moment. Sleep sneaks in. You remember what one priest whispered during the crowning. A crown is not protection. It's an invitation. To be tested, to be watched, to be brought low if you ever forget that power is rented, not owned. You try not to dream of falling. You wake to goat screams and incense smoke. Someone burned the morning offerings too close to the livestock again. You pull yourself upright, sore in new places. Neck, shoulders, jaw. From clenching your teeth during yesterday's festivities. The crown is back on its ivory stand. You eye it like it's a scorpion. Today's agenda? Palace administration. Don't let the word palace fool you. You're not lounging in alabaster halls with rose petals floating in fountains. Your palace in Napata is mostly mud brick, wood scaffolding and ceremonial paint that flakes off when the wind blows too hard. Half the rooms smell like dried fish and linen glue. But, sure, technically it's a palace. The floors are uneven, the doorways are too low for your ceremonial hat. Your cousin, who handles royal building logistics, keeps promising the new marble entrance is coming. That was 5 festivals ago. So instead of waiting for luxury, you do what every good pharaoh does, micromanage. You summon the head of palace operations, an older woman named Saba, who's terrifyingly efficient and once slapped a thief mid-sentence. She hands you a scroll and says, "We're out of date syrup." Again, you nod solemnly, as if this is a sacred crisis. It kind of is. Date syrup fuels everything. Royal energy, priestly snacks, even temple bribes. No syrup means no sweet favors. Then come the petitioners. Again. A goat has broken into the grain stores. A guard has married a priestess without clearance. A royal cook is hoarding pomegranates. Someone even complains that your lion, Mecca, growled during a moon ritual and disrupted the alignment of Venus. You listen. You nod. You try not to yawn. The truth? Palace life is boring, but you have to pretend it's not, because the moment you seem uninterested, someone accuses you of disrespecting the divine harmony, which sounds poetic, but really just means we liked the last guy better. You head into the courtyard hoping for air. Instead, you get politics. A small group of regional nobles has arrived. They want an audience, which really means they want favors. You recognize them instantly. 2 from Lower Nubia, 1 from Elephantine, and 1 suspiciously tan fellow from the Libyan border who always wears too much perfume. They bow, they smile, they all start talking at once. They want tax reductions, more granary rights, permission to expand their sacred goat festivals. You say no, maybe. As you negotiate, a scribe stands behind you, recording every word. You can't sigh too loudly. You can't glance at Mecca, who is lounging nearby and licking her paw like a queen. You just have to keep smiling and remembering what you learned during priest training. If you must lie, make it sound like a blessing. Eventually the nobles leave. You remain, sweating and thirsty, while a servant offers you lukewarm tamarind water. You sip it like it's divine nectar. It's not. Halfway back to your quarters when someone taps your shoulder. Big mistake. Mecca growls instantly and the man freezes. He's a young scribe, barely old enough to shave, holding a broken stylus and shaking like a leaf. He whispers, "They're whispering in the kitchens." You blink. "Who's there?" He shrugs. "The ones who slice the figs. They say your brother is visiting from Kerma, uninvited." Your stomach drops. Your brother? Ah yes, the charming, unpredictable one. Last seen leading a camel caravan through the Red Sea hills and quoting Herodotus like he knew him personally. If he's in Napata, it's not for a friendly chat. Call for your guards, double the night watch, add a food taster. Not because you think your brother will poison you, he's more theatrical than lethal, but still, you know how these stories end, especially when figs are involved. You retreat to the inner chambers, the only place that feels somewhat your own. Papyrus scrolls cover one wall, and your most sacred objects are stacked neatly beside your bed mat. A carved ebony lion, a flint knife wrapped in cloth, and a folded note from your mother that just says, "Trust no one wearing green." She was dramatic, but not wrong. As the sun starts to drop, the shadows stretch across the painted floors. The gold trim on your sandals catches the light. For a brief moment, everything looks rich, glowing, timeless. You almost feel powerful. And then a guard bursts in. The priests request your presence, Divine One, immediately. Of course they do. You pull yourself up, tighten your robe, and follow him into the cool passage leading toward the temple annex. There in the gloom, 4 high priests await. Their faces are painted, their heads are bowed. One of them holds a papyrus. It's a weather omen. The Nile will not rise this year, he says. The gods are displeased. And guess whose fault that is? Yours. You, the intermediary, the god on earth, the face of Mart. The entire natural balance of life is apparently your responsibility. And now the river, the literal lifeblood of the kingdom, is staging a protest. You want to scream, but instead you nod, as expected, and say, "Then we will fast, and give more offerings." The priests look mildly satisfied, but the fear behind their eyes says everything. If the Nile doesn't rise, crops will fail, hunger will spread, and no crown, not even a double one, will protect you from the people's wrath. By nightfall, you're alone in the garden again. Mecca snoozes beside you, belly up, dreaming of meat. Crickets chirp in the reeds. Somewhere upriver, a priest drops a floating lantern into the water. You watch it bob away in the dark, tiny and fragile. Just like your rain, there's no such thing as privacy when you're a living god. Before dawn, you're pulled from bed to bathe, again, in chilled lotus water, because a priest dreamt that the god Khonsu prefers clean pharaohs. You want to argue, but last time you skipped morning ablutions, your sandals mysteriously vanished. For 3 days. You lie still as attendants scrub, chant, and smear you in increasingly alarming pastes. One smells like crushed frogs, another is grainy, like sand and regret. You ask what it's for. The answer, protection from desert spirits. Right, naturally. After you're sufficiently exfoliated, an older priest waves burning myrrh round your head and whispers a blessing. It ends with, "May your soul not be swallowed by Sobek." Comforting. Then comes the walk to the inner sanctum of Amun. If you thought ruling meant freedom, this walk proves otherwise. You're not striding, you're being paraded. Every footstep is choreographed. You must glide like a cloud, pause exactly 4 heartbeats at each column, and nod only when the priest taps his cane once, not twice, not 3 times, once. It's less walking, more surviving a ritualized interpretive dance. You enter the holiest chamber. The air is thick, the silence louder than war. You kneel, again, and the priests circle you, chanting. You don't understand half of it, and neither do they. Some of these phrases are older than the dynasty. Still, you repeat what you're told. You pour water into gold bowls. You listen to the stone statue of Amun. It says nothing, obviously, but your high priest interprets a head tilt as divine approval. You want to ask, "You sure that wasn't just gravity?" But you don't, because now you're being handed a scroll listing sacrifices for the next lunar cycle. 12 bulls, 42 jars of wine, 8 dancers, 1 musician with strong lungs. You nod solemnly. The god Amun demands flair. Here's the catch. These rituals are daily. You're not a guest in the temple. You're a permanent fixture, a mouthpiece, a glittering puppet who occasionally tries to rule while balancing divine performance art. The priests hold real power. They whisper what the gods say. You just echo it louder and prettier. Historians still argue whether the priesthood manipulated the pharaohs, or if pharaohs used the priesthood to control the masses. Either way, in your case, you're definitely not in charge in that room. You leave the sanctuary light-headed, half-drenched in scented oils, and now late for court. Again. Outside, your guard shifts nervously. Today, your advisors are gathered, looking tense. You already know something's wrong. It's the taxes. Turns out, temple grain stores are mysteriously low, yet all receipts are signed and sealed. Someone's stealing from Amun, and it sure isn't Amun. Your finance minister, whose eyelids never move, blames local efficiency. Your cousin blames river spirits. One scribe quietly suggests it's probably us. He's escorted out, gently, with a warning tap from the ceremonial reed stick. You say nothing at first, just let silence stretch. And then you lean forward and say, double the records. From now on, every shipment gets 2 seals, 1 priest, 1 scribe. Let them watch each other. There's an uncomfortable murmur. You've just implied the priesthood isn't untouchable. You've also made enemies. That evening, during your ceremonial dinner, your wine tastes off. Not poisoned, just wrong. Oversweet. You push it away, a subtle signal. You're aware. You're not scared. You're ready. Truth is, you're not ready. You're tired. Not the I need a nap kind of tired. The soul deep, sand in your bones tired. You haven't made a decision that wasn't pre-approved by 3 gods, 5 priests and a handful of nervous scribes in weeks. Even your lion seems disappointed. Mecca paces your private quarters like she's considering a job change. She huffs and flops beside you with a long sigh, her golden eyes half-lidded. She knows the palace isn't right. Animals always do. The night winds roll in, brushing through the woven papyrus walls. You hear the sound of distant drums. Not the good kind. These are low, subtle, from across the river. You stand, robe trailing behind you, and walk to the edge of the terrace. In the darkness, torches flicker on the far bank. A group of priests has gathered, without your summons. They're holding a vigil. Not for you, for the Nile. They're trying to summon the waters with chants and offerings of honey and blue lotus. It's a quiet rebellion, wrapped in incense and devotion. But it's rebellion all the same. You're supposed to be the voice of Amun, but they're praying without you. You clench the rail, your fingers dig into the stone. This is how power slips, not with swords, but with whispers, with rituals you weren't invited to, with priests deciding the gods speak more clearly without your voice in the room. A servant appears behind you. She says softly, "Your sandals are polished." You don't respond. Just stare across the river, where the fires burn low and the Egyptians rise higher than your authority. By dawn, you're already drenched in sweat and dread. Today, you travel north. Not physically, yet. First, it's a mental journey through endless scrolls, courtesy of the Egyptian scribes stationed in Napata. They shuffle into the audience hall like beetles, clicking papyrus tubes, bowing just deep enough to insult you. They serve Egypt. Technically, they serve you, now that you rule both lands. But that loyalty is thinner than the ink on their scrolls. Most of them are descended from old Theban bloodlines. They've been in Egypt's royal bureaucracy longer than anyone remembers. And they resent you. They call you Nezut, the true pharaoh, but never with warmth. It's more like they're quoting a policy manual. You speak Meritic, they speak court Egyptian. Sometimes the translations feel convenient. Today's complaint: a Theban governor refused to send wheat quotas. Again. He says the Nile hasn't risen. Again. He blames southern mismanagement. That means you. That always means you. You grip the carved arms of your throne, wood and gold, polished with lemon oil and the weight of expectations. You listen. You nod. You draft a response that says, in polite ancient euphemism, "I'm not a joke, and if you push me, you'll find out." But everyone knows threats don't matter unless you show up. So you begin preparations to travel. Not far yet, just a diplomatic visit to the southern Egyptian border towns, the edge of your empire's problem zone. Your advisors are immediately anxious. Travel means risk. Risk means unpredictability. And unpredictability is what the Egyptian elite are counting on. One bad slip, one insult, one spear too close to your neck, and suddenly the throne's up for grabs again. You try to mask the tension by visiting the armory. Now, here's where it gets weird. Royal armories in Kush aren't just military stockpiles. They're sacred. Every weapon is blessed, labeled and tracked. One of your short swords was used by your grandfather in a ritual lion hunt. Another, carved from black obsidian, was forged by priests during an eclipse and is rumored to cause dreams if you sleep near it. You tried once, woke up crying. You pick a staff, not for war, for the optics. It's inlaid with lapis, topped with a small falcon skull, don't ask, and heavy enough to signal, I may smile, but I'll still break kneecaps. Fact check for the night. Nubian kings often modeled themselves after the Egyptian image of divine kingship, down to fashion, titles and rituals, but they infused it with rawer military flair and a distinct sense of their own cultural strength. The result? A power look that's equal parts celestial and savage. Your chariot is prepped. And if you're imagining polished gold, feathered horses and smooth rides, stop. Your chariot is real, which means it's rough, wood-craking, and slightly off balance. Your driver is a teenage cousin whose only qualification is being too loud to ignore. You pretend it's fine. You climb in. You nod, like your spine isn't being compacted with every bump. The journey north is slow. The Nile glimmers beside you. Villagers stop work and bow. Children stare with open mouths, some unsure if you're a statue or real. You wave, regal, but tired. One boy throws you a mango. It hits your guard in the face. You forgive him instantly. Good aim is rare. At a rest point, you meet with local commanders. You expect formality. You get complaints. One officer growls that Egyptian merchants refuse to use Nubian ports. Another says the border guards were bribed by Libyan smugglers. A third just asks for more beer. You look each one in the eye. You listen. You ask careful questions. You remind them, gently, that while Egypt may be the older empire, you are Pharaoh now. Not a placeholder. Not a footnote. They nod. Not enthusiastically, but they nod. After they leave, you sit beneath a sycamore tree, drink cool barley water and sigh. It's a moment of peace, until your bodyguard leans in and says, "They're watching." You glance toward a nearby hill. A group of cloaked figures stares back, too distant to identify, too obvious to ignore. Spies. Possibly Egyptian, possibly Libyan, possibly your own nobles checking if you flinch under pressure. You raise your cup to them, a quiet challenge. Then you sip slowly. That night you don't return to the palace. You camp on the road, surrounded by guards, torches flickering, and the Nile whispering close by. You lie under a sky so clear it feels etched. The stars above you once guided your ancestors across deserts into Egypt and back again. Now, they just watch as you try to stitch two fractured worlds into one throne. Historians still argue whether Nubian pharaohs truly ruled Egypt or just held it on a technicality. But lying here, with your lion curled beside you, the air humming with tension, and a nation's fate resting on your bruised shoulders, you know the truth. It's not about who rules. It's whether you can survive ruling at all. You wake up to flies, aching joints, and the unnerving silence of soldiers trying too hard to pretend everything's fine. Your camp's been cleaned and polished before sunrise, torches extinguished, footprints erased, tents realigned to face the Nile just so. Also the gods won't take offense. Because today, you're doing something far worse than diplomacy or war. You're tomb planning. Yes, already. You're barely out of your 20s, your back still strong, your eyes not yet sunken from age or betrayal. And yet here you are, standing on a sun-baked hilltop while architects point at stone and argue about the afterlife. They say every pharaoh must begin designing his tomb the moment the crown touches his head. It's a sign of humility, of spiritual foresight, of readiness. You know what it really is? Stress. You're walked through a valley near Gebel Barkal. The cliffs rise in jagged silence, wind howling through the crevices. It's beautiful, in a harsh, lonely way. The spot is perfect, according to your advisors. A good view of the sacred mountain, easy access for funerary processions, and most importantly, enough room to build a tomb big enough to make future rulers feel inadequate. They hand you a scroll. It's a blueprint, more dream than plan. It includes chambers for your organs, rooms filled with gold offerings, sacred paintings on every wall, and a secret passage for your soul to escape through in case you're judged harshly in the afterlife. There's even space for a boat, a real one, just in case you need to sail your way across the underworld. You blink. How big is the boat? They shrug. Big enough for eternity. You nod politely, ask a few questions about ventilation, then realize that nobody knows what ventilation means. You pretend to like the granite samples. One feels cool under your fingers. You say, "This one." You have no idea why. The architect bows, like you've just performed a miracle. Truth is, it's all for show. No one knows what the afterlife looks like, but they all know what failure feels like. You build a bad tomb, and your soul wanders forever. Or worse, your enemies dig it up and steal your peace. Somewhere a scribe mutters, "Historians will remember this design." You snort, loudly. Historians remember what's left unloaded. Silence. Moving on. Now comes the part you hate more. Logistics. Tombs cost a fortune. You need stonemasons, artists, grave security, painters who can handle 50 different shades of gold and blue without passing out. You need food stores for the workers, guards for the gold, and enough incense to keep every necropolis ghost in a good mood. And guess who pays for all this? Yep, you. Not the temples, not the nobles. You. You return to Napata, where your treasurer greets you with the warm expression of someone about to ruin your day. "We can afford a mid-sized burial chamber," he says. Or, "a fleet of grain barges." Not both. He squints. "What happens if I die next week?" He shrugs. "Then we scramble." Quite comforting. You decide to downsize the tomb. For now, less gold, fewer murals. Keep the secret escape tunnel, though. That feels important. Wait, that day, while chewing on date cake and listening to a servant sing a song about moonflowers, you think about death. Not dramatically, just practically. Because being Pharaoh means death never leaves your side. You could fall from your chariot tomorrow. You could choke on a bad fig. You could be assassinated by that one guard who always smiles too wide. And when it happens, your tomb better be ready. Otherwise your spirit's stuck floating above the Nile, watching rats eat your sandals. That night the artists begin preliminary sketches of your eternal face. It's generous, youthful, godlike. You look taller, wiser, shinier. You chuckle and say, "Make sure I'm smiling. I want the afterlife to know I had jokes." The painter bows. "Of course, divine one." You don't mention that your real face is tired, that your eyes don't sparkle like lapis, that your jawline has started to blur. You let them believe in the illusion. Because that's what all this is, a performance. Rule by day, prepare to die by night. Later, Mecca curls beside you in the corner of the room, snoring like a boulder rolling downhill. You reach for a dried fig. It tastes fine, but your hand trembles just a little. You write one line on a scrap of papyrus and hide it beneath your bed mat. "If I die soon, tell the people I laughed until the end." No one will find it, but it helps you sleep. The Nile is late. Not fashionably late, dangerously, ominously, stomach-knotting late. It should have flooded 2 weeks ago, spreading its thick blessing across the black earth, but the water crawls, low and stubborn, as if it, too, is questioning your divinity. Everyone's pretending not to panic, which of course means everyone is panicking. You sit beneath the palace shade pavilion trying to look serene. You hold a lotus blossom. You sip barley tea. You ask for updates like you're casually discussing the weather, but the answers are always the same. No rise yet. The tributaries are dry. Bird migration is off. Maybe it's the moon. Maybe it's you. Whispers are starting. You know how it goes. If the Nile doesn't flood, it's not nature's fault, it's yours. The gods are angry. Or worse, apathetic. The difference doesn't matter to the people, but it matters to you. Because hunger makes people brave. Or stupid. Fact of the day. The Nile flood wasn't just essential. It was divine. Ancient Egyptians and Nubians both relied on it not just for crops but for their cosmic worldview. When it failed, kings fell. Sometimes quietly. Sometimes not. You tried to distract yourself with trade reports. But those bring no peace either. A caravan from the incense-rich south vanished 2 weeks ago. Bandits, desert storms. No one knows. All you know is that your palace now reeks of panic, sweat, instead of cinnamon and resin. The worse, a caravan from the Phoenician coast was ambushed. Half your luxury goods, copper, wine, cedar, lost. Trade routes are stretched thin. Bandits are growing bolder. And you're still expected to host a feast in 2 days to celebrate. Awkward. You summon your trade envoy. He arrives looking sunburnt and guilty. We're trying alternate routes, he says, across the Red Hills. You nod. You don't remind him that the Red Hills are full of venomous snakes and tribes who really hate tax collectors. You just say, try harder. Then there's the drought tax. When the Nile fails, you're supposed to ease burdens, lessen demands, forgive debts. That's what a just king does. But your treasury is already bleeding, and your tomb builders just discovered the granite blocks have cracks. Great. Even your afterlife prep is falling apart. You do the math. Forgive the taxes and you gain love but lose leverage. Enforce them and you fund stability, but earn resentment that smells like rebellion. You choose the middle. A reduction, not forgiveness. The priests bless your generosity. The people mutter. That night a small clay jar appears on your pillow. Inside is a dried fig, a pinch of dust, and a beetle shell. Coded language for famine, death, and failure. Classic palace poetry. No note, no signature. You burn it. Silently. The next morning someone tries to cheer you up with a parade. A crocodile is led through town, decked in gold scales and painted eyelids. It's meant to honor Sobek, lord of the waters, bringer of fertility. Everyone cheers as the beast stomps around, looking thoroughly unimpressed. You're supposed to bless it, lay hands on its scaly head, whisper something sacred. Instead, you stare into its dead, reptilian eyes and wonder if it knows something you don't. Then you do it. You say the words, you raise your arms, everyone claps, the priests chant, but even the crocodile looks skeptical. Later, a merchant asks for ordnance. He's old, wiry, smells like desert winds and stale honey. He offers you a trade, frankincense from Punt, in exchange for sacred scrolls from the temple library. It's borderline heretical. Temple knowledge isn't supposed to be sold, but frankincense buys time, peace, leverage. You stare at the man. He doesn't blink. He knows you're tempted. You say, no, then add, but return next week. He smiles, the kind of smile that says, you will change your mind. He probably will. Being falls. No rain, no flood. You walk the banks of the Nile with only your lion and a flute player for company. Mecca pads beside you, tail twitching, eyes scanning for trouble. The music is low, minor, ancient, notes that once pleased gods who've long stopped answering mail. You reach the water's edge, kneel, scoop up a handful. It's warm, too warm. It runs through your fingers like failure. You whisper, rise. Nuff. Footsteps. You turn to find a girl, maybe 10 years old, holding a carved wooden bird. She stares at you, wide-eyed, then says, "Are you the one who talks to the river?" You smile. He nods. It's not listening. Either is anyone else, you think. She runs off before you can say more. Back at the palace, you lie awake. You hear drums. Not celebration, not war. Something older. River drums. Rhythm meant for calling what's buried below. You close your eyes and imagine the Nile swelling, bursting its banks, filling fields with life. Instead it stays still, flat, unmoved. You fall asleep with your fingers curled like claws, and dream of sand covering everything you built. The sun isn't even up and someone's already applying eyeliner to your face with a bone stick sharpened like a dagger. You twitch, and the attendant snaps, "Hold still, divine one." Easy for her to say. She's not the one with powdered lead inches from her eyeballs. Ah yes, lead, because that's what your coal is made of, the same stuff used in ancient murder plots and flaky water pipes. But here, it's sacred, protective, stylish, poisonous, and manmentary. The heat hasn't even set in yet, and already you feel like a painted corpse. Makeup is serious business in Kushite royalty. Every color signals something: power, wealth, mood, godly alignment. Your eyeliner is supposed to evoke Horus, the falcon god of kingship and vision. You mostly just hope it doesn't give you a rash. And today, of course, there's an inspection. Ambassadors from Upper Egypt are visiting, and if your eyeliner smudges, they'll whisper that the Nubian is cracking under the sun. These people will judge you for everything: posture, scent, the angle of your headdress, feathers. So you endure. You let them smudge green malachite on your lips and rub scented oil into your scalp. Then they pull out the sunscreen, which is crocodile dung. Yes, actual sun-baked crocodile droppings, mixed with herbs and crushed carob, pressed into a waxy balm and slathered on your shoulders like war paint. You gag, quietly. The priest overseeing the ritual tells you it wards off evil spirits and sunburn. You ask, are the spirits the ones that smell like this? He doesn't laugh, naturally. Fun fact, animal waste was commonly used in ancient cosmetics and medicine. Crocodile dung was believed to have purifying qualities. Historians still argue whether it worked or just made you deeply unpopular at social events. Once you're dressed and blessed, you step into the reception chamber, glittering in gold and other things. You stand tall, even though your linen robe clings uncomfortably thanks to your new sun shield. The ambassadors arrive with practiced grins and enough jewelry to weigh down a donkey. Their leader, a pale, sharp-nosed man named Hori, bows low, but not low enough. A slight, intentional. He says, "We are grateful to bask in your presence." Translation: "We're here to measure if you're weak enough to push around." You reply, "Then may you be warmed by it." Translation: "Try me." There's a pause. Everyone breathes a little too shallowly. Then comes the offering round. Ambassadors bring gifts: a leopard skin cloak, a box of myrrh, a golden figurine of Ra with one eye missing. You're expected to return the gesture. You offer lapis, ebony, and a scroll of ancestral wisdom. It's mostly about how not to trust Thebans. After the formalities, you dine. It's meant to be opulent, but also carefully choreographed. You must break bread first, then sip the wine second. You can't touch figs until a priest recites the hymn of good digestion, which is real and takes forever. Meanwhile, you try not to breathe through your nose. Crocodile sunscreen plus stewed onions equals a scent that could strip paint. At one point, Hori compliments your lion. Seems tamed. You smile. Only by me. Mecca yawns, revealing her teeth. Someone spills wine. After the feast, the political theatre continues. The Egyptian envoy delivers veiled complaints about irregular trade flows and spiritual disharmony between temples. They're not talking about economics. They're talking about power. Specifically yours. The priests in Thebes don't like that you worship Amun your way. In Napata, the rituals are older, wilder, more direct. You burn different incense. Your chants skip the polished inflections of northern temples. To them, it's blasphemy. To you, it's authenticity. You say, The gods hear what they choose to hear. They are not bound by dialect. Hori smiles, but people are. Later, you retreat to your chambers and scrub your face raw. The coal stings, the dung won't come off. You sit in a stone tub filled with lotus water and mutter, "Power is ridiculous." Your bodyguard chuckles. "Want me to feed the ambassador to Mecca?" You shake your head. "Not yet." That evening you hold court again. This time it's your nobles. They've caught wind of the Egyptian visit. One asks if you'll be marrying into Theban nobility. Another suggests strengthening spiritual alliances. They mean, tie yourself to Egypt so we can stop holding our breath. You say, our strength does not need foreign scaffolding. Someone writes that down like it's poetry. But the pressure is real. Your rule depends on balancing what you inherited with what you are. Egypt sees you as an outsider with a borrowed title. Your people see you as a bridge between old gods and new, desert roots and Nile riches. You see yourself as tired. Before bed, your healer visits. You've developed a rash on your shoulder. He looks at it, sniffs and says, "Did someone smear dung on you?" You glare. He shrugs. "We'll try pomegranate rind next time." You lie back, close your eyes, try to summon peace. But all you can smell is crocodile. And all you can hear is the memory of Hori's voice, calm and cold. People are bound by dialect. You wonder if he meant that you don't speak theirs, or that you never will. You wake up to roaring. Not from war, not from rebels, not even from priests complaining about your latest temple shortcomings. This roar is deep, primal, and coming from Mecca's side of the palace. By the time you reach her courtyard, barefooted and half-dressed in a wrinkled robe, your lion is pacing in tight, angry circles. Her mane bristles, her eyes lock onto something or someone you can't see yet. Then, from behind a date tree, steps the cause. It's your animal trainer, pale and shaking. Behind him, two smaller lions, adolescents, snarl nervously on short rope leashes. Their eyes flash, ears flattened. One is clearly sick. The other looks bored, which might be worse. He raises an eyebrow. He stammers, "They're a gift, from the provincial governors of Wawat. They were told it would please you." You look at the lions, then at Mecca, then at the idiot with the ropes. Did the governors tell you to bring them into her courtyard? No, Divine One. That was initiative. 3. You step back as Mecca lets out another roar, loud enough to shake dust from the ceiling. She's not jealous. She's insulted. And she has a memory better than some of your scribes. One time, 2 years ago, you brought a second lion to a feast. Mecca sulked for 6 days and refused to eat until the rival was reassigned to a garrison in the desert. It didn't make it. Now history's repeating, with cubs. You order the new lions removed, immediately, sent far, far away, maybe the Libyan border, maybe the moon. The trainer bows so low he hits his own knee. The lions yelp as they drag off. Mecca watches. She does not relax. Next time, you say, ask before introducing new apex predators into my personal space. It's not just the lions. Being Pharaoh comes with an entire zoo's worth of animals, literal and human. Elephants for parades, gazelles for racing, monkeys that are supposed to be entertaining but mostly just scream. One of them bit your priest last week. You're expected to maintain these beasts not for fun but for optics. Power loves pets. A king without animals is seen as poor. A king with too many, reckless. It's a delicate balance, like everything else in your life. And speaking of balance, your meat taxes are late. Yes, meat. Because in Kushite law, certain villages owe the crown livestock tribute. Goats, fowl, and fresh cuts of meat delivered monthly. These payments are supposed to support the palace kitchen and feed sacred animals. But this month only half arrived, some of it spoiled. One chicken escaped mid-delivery and hasn't been seen since. You summon the tax collectors. They look exhausted. Their tunics are stained. One smells like jackal. They say the roads aren't safe. Bandits are growing bolder. Wolves are stealing livestock. Farmers are blaming spirits. Everyone's got a reason, but the bottom line is this. You're low on meat, and your lions are eyeing the scribes. You issue a new order. Guards will now accompany tribute caravans. Any village that fails to meet quota must provide labor or cloth, no exceptions. It sounds harsh, but if Mecca goes hungry again, someone's going to lose a face. Now for the real problem. Your lion is restless, and that means something is wrong. Mecca has instincts sharper than any priest's dreams. When she snarls at visitors, they usually turn out to be lying. When she paces, expect news. When she sulks, someone is about to betray you. Today, she's pacing again. You don't ignore it. You meet with your security chief, an aging warrior with one eye and a habit of sharpening his knife during meetings. He confirms. 3 thefts from temple granaries this week. A scribe caught with a second set of ledgers. A priest found hiding gold rings in a pottery jar labeled beans. You sigh. Who's orchestrating it? He shrugs. Hard to say. But someone with access. Someone close. Of course. The only thing harder than feeding a lion is trusting a human. Later you walk the palace grounds alone. The sun bakes the stone walkways. Dung beetles roll past, focused, unbothered. You envy them. You pass your courtyard shrine and pause. The statue of Sekhmet, lioness goddess of vengeance, glares down at you, eyes forever carved in fury. People say pharaohs are chosen by the gods, but days like this, it feels more like they're toying with you, or watching to see how long it takes before you snap. You pet Mecca on the head. She leans into it, rumbling low. Then a servant bursts in, face pale, robe torn. Breathless, he gasps. Your second wife has fallen ill. You freeze. Poison? Illness? A stunt? You rush to her quarters, trailing guards and worry she's pale, shivering, her lips are cracked. The healer is already applying a paste made from figs and garlic, chanting something about rebirth. You sit beside her. She reaches out, grabs your wrist. It wasn't the food, she whispers. It was a letter. She passes you a folded scrap of parchment. Go. But you recognize the scent. It's lotus and vinegar, used to hide invisible ink. Hold it to a flame. Slowly, words appear. One line. The lion roars too loud. Silence it before it feeds. You stare. Mecca growls. Outside, the sky darkens. Dust rises. You've just received a death threat. And not for you, for your lion. You don't eat. You don't sleep. You don't speak unless it's necessary. Because right now, someone in your palace wants Mecca dead. And that's not just a threat to your lion. That's a strike at the heart of your identity. In Kush, a pharaoh's lion is more than a pet. She's your divine companion, your enforcer, your symbol of strength. She walks beside you in court, paces at your side during ceremonies, and glares at foreign envoys until they forget their insults. If someone's targeting her, they're not just questioning your authority, they're challenging your legitimacy. You reread the invisible message. The lion roars too loud. Silence it before it feeds. It could mean a lot of things, but your gut says it's not poetic. It's a warning from someone close, cloaked in metaphor so they don't get caught. Someone who knows how important Mech is, not just to you, but to the way your rule is perceived. Spend the morning pretending everything is fine. You sit on your throne, you nod through boring arguments about fish taxes. You approve new paint colors for temple walls, eggplant and lapis, apparently trending this season. You eat honey-dipped lotus root, with a fork carved from ivory, but all the while your mind is racing. Who would dare? One of your wives? Maybe. Jealousy and power mix like vinegar and limestone. Your second wife is still sick. Real or faked, you're not sure. Your first wife, the sister wife, is quiet lately. Too quiet. She's been hosting poetry readings for political healing, which is either harmless or plotting in verse. Or maybe it's one of your cousins. You've got dozens, all of them ambitious. A few bold, at least 2 stupid enough to poison your lion just to stir unrest. One of them even petitioned to have Mecca retired after she chewed through a ceremonial drum at last month's harvest dance. You rejected it, politely. Now you're wondering if that was a mistake. You call a meeting in the private chamber, just your tight inner circle. No priests, no wives, no scribes, just your captain of the guard, your chief steward, your lion trainer, the nervous old advisor, a woman named Cussa, who's seen more backstabbing than a butcher. You lay it out for them, the letter, the timing, the threat, Mecca's unease. No one speaks at first. Then Cussa mutters, "They're not just after the lion, they're testing your leash." You nod, she's right. If you hesitate, they win. If you overreact, they win. So you take a third option, a trap. You spread word that Mecca will appear alone at tomorrow's sun blessing ceremony. You'll stay behind, citing spiritual fasting. Mecca will walk the palace edge alone, just a few guards nearby. But in secret you'll watch, armed, hidden, with your best men ready. Historians still argue whether pharaohs actually set these kinds of traps, or if later scribes dramatized it all into legend. Either way, this is real enough for you. That night, you visit Mecca's quarters. She's calm now, stretched across a stone slab cooled with river water. You sit beside her, scratch behind her ears and whisper, "They want you gone." She blinks, licks your arm, unconcerned. You envy her clarity. At dawn, the trap is set. Mecca walks the courtyard path, draped in ceremonial gold chainlets and painted with protective runes. She looks like a god, carved from sunfire and shadow. You watch from behind a lattice wall, spear in hand, heart pounding. Hours pass, nothing. Then, movement. One of the fig carriers, an older servant unassuming, veers off the procession path. He stops near Mecca, pulls something from his robes, not a blade, a pouch. Your eyes lock onto it. You give the signal. Guards swoop in. The man doesn't run. He just drops the pouch and kneels. You step forward. The whole court gasps. So much for fasting. You demand the pouch. Inside, smoked beef strips, laced with belladonna. Poison, subtle, delayed, perfect for an animal like Mecca. Enough to cause seizures, maybe death. The man says nothing. You press. Who sent you? He lifts his head and mutters, "Your wife wanted quiet again." You pause. Which wife? Pleasantly smiles. He's executed before sunset. Quietly. Not for the court, just for justice. The wives are summoned. They swear innocence, cry, swoon, accuse each other. Your sister wife says her poetry is being misinterpreted. Your second wife, still sick, pleads from her bed that she loves Mecca like a sister. You say nothing. Not yet. Instead, you increase Mecca's guard. She now sleeps inside your quarters. No food touches her bowl unless it's tasted. No one pets her except you. You may be Pharaoh, but tonight you are also her shield. That night, as you lie beside the flickering torchlight, you whisper to the ceiling, "They're not afraid of me anymore." You feel Mecca's body warm against yours, steady, watchful. She hasn't slept in hours. Neither of you. But she purrs, which means you're still breathing. For now, the sky glows copper at sunrise and you're already strapped into a war chariot that rattles like an old riddle. The wheels creak, the reins bite, The horses twitch with nerves. You try to look majestic. Mostly, you're trying not to vomit. Today, you're riding into a mock battle. Not a real one. Not yet. This is ceremonial. Part drill, part spectacle. A public performance to prove you're still fierce, still divine, still capable of wielding more than metaphors. You're expected to strike down straw soldiers, loose arrows into targets shaped like Assyrian generals, and shout something inspiring every few minutes. You hate it. Not because you're weak, because you're rusty. When you trained as a boy, you could hit a fig tree at 50 strides. You could wrestle older boys to the dirt and grin through a bloody nose. But now, you're a king with scrolls to read, dreams to interpret, taxes to dodge. You haven't held a real bow in months. Still, the crowd doesn't know that, and the scribes are already scribbling. The battlefield is just outside Napata's southern gate, flat, dusty, and lined with palm wood mannequins dressed in fake armor. You see the rows of nobles in the stands, fanning themselves with lotus leaf petals. The priests murmur blessings. Children squeal when they see your lion trotting beside the chariot. Yes, Mecca insisted on coming. No one stopped her. You grip your bow. Your general, a heavy-set man named Dalu with a voice like cracking stone, growls. 3 volleys, then charge. Look divine. Right. For horn sounds. You knock your arrow, breathe, and fire. The first arrow misses, slightly. Hits the dummy's wooden thigh instead of the chest. The second strikes true, right in the painted heart. The crowd gasps. Someone shouts your name. The third, you hit the dummy's helmet, which goes flying into the dust. Children cheer like you've just won a real war. You ride forward, your chariot lurching. You shout something about raised justice. It comes out hoarse. Doesn't matter. The scribes will fix it in the records. Then the final part, the mock duel. A young soldier in padded armor approaches, waving a dulled spear. He bows, then lunges. You parry with a ceremonial blade. Metal clinks, dust kicks. You sidestep, swing, land a clean tap on his shoulder. It's all going well, until the accident. Your horse rears slightly, spooked by something, maybe a flick of Mecca's tail, and your foot slips. You don't fall, but you stumble. Just a step, just enough. The crowd sees it. You recover, finish the bout, raise your arms. The cheers are there, but thinner now. The scribes frown. You see one whispering to the other. Later you'll read in the court bulletin, the divine one danced like Horus upon the battlefield, his steps as swift as the river breeze. Nice save. But you felt it. The hesitation, the tiny crack. Fact of the day. Pharaohs were expected to be warriors, even when they ruled from the comfort of palaces. It wasn't optional. It was part of the job. To be king was to be battle-ready, even if most of the real fighting was left to generals. Symbolism mattered more than scars. You ride back dusty, sore, and quietly furious. In the bathhouse, servants scrub you with oils that sting. One whispers, you were inspiring. You say nothing. Because the truth is, your legs shook on that chariot, and not from fear, from fatigue. You're not 20 anymore. You're not a trainee on temple sand. You're a ruler, drowning in logistics and ghost threats. War games are the easy part. The rest of your day? Actual conflict. After bathing, you meet with your military council. They bring maps, reports, complaints. The Libyan border flares again. Skirmishes, missing scouts, burnt trade posts. Your eastern forts are short on iron. The Ethiopians are moving troops closer to the highlands. No one says, war, but it's creeping at the edges of every sentence. You point at the Libyan marker. Send reinforcements, quietly. The general nods. Then your strategist, skinny, nervous, brilliant, says something you weren't ready for. Maybe, we don't need war. You blink. Go on. There's a prophecy circulating in the Delta, he says, a tale that a southern pharaoh will bring 3 decades of darkness. They think it's you. You rub your temples. So now you're a living threat and a walking omen. You ask, and what would make them stop believing that? He shrugs. A miracle, or a marriage. You freeze. It's come up before. Marrying an Egyptian noblewoman, binding Upper and Lower Egypt not just with trade but with blood. You've refused every time. Love, you can fake. Loyalty, you can't buy. But you admit, it's tempting. Still, your stomach turns at the thought. You leave the meeting early. Your mind buzzes. You step into your private garden, hoping for quiet. But Mecca is there, batting a bird carcass like she's performing an offering. You sit beside her. She leans into you, warm and alive. You whisper, "You saw me stumble." Hers. "I hate this part," you say. The theatre. The pretending. She licks your hand. You pretend it helps. The sun sets. You climb to the temple roof, alone. From here, you can see the full sprawl of Napata mud brick homes, shining rooftops, torchlight tracing the Nile. You hear the drums, the prayers, the wind. You close your eyes and try to believe you're still the warrior they need. It's been 2 days since your chariot stumble, and people still chant your name like nothing happened. That's how you know something's wrong. Because when they don't talk about it, it's worse. You walk through the temple corridor. Every torch is freshly lit. Every priest bows lower than necessary. The scribes won't meet your eyes. That's how rumors move here. Silently, like sand underfoot, until you're buried and didn't even feel it happen. And then there's the sky. There's a strange heaviness in the air this morning, clouds rolling in low and fast, wind cutting across the stone paths like a blade. By noon, the temple bells start ringing, not for war, not for ceremony, but for warning. The sun disappears. Of an eclipse. It comes without announcement, as eclipses often did in ancient times. No astrologer predicted it. No priest prepared the people. The sky darkens, like a lid closing over a jar. And everyone freaks out. People drop to their knees in the streets, faces to the ground, arms outstretched. Some scream, some chant. A few run in circles, yelling about the judgment of Ra. You, of course, must remain calm, unbothered. You walk to the temple courtyard and raise your hands to the sky like you meant for this to happen. It is the eye of the gods, you proclaim. They are watching, they are deciding. The crowd quiets, for now. Your high priests shuffle to your side. One leans in and mutters, "We must perform the ritual of light." Another one whispers, or maybe, a ritual of forgiveness. He raised an eyebrow. Forgiveness for what? They exchange glances. They won't say it, but you know. They think this is your fault, that the gods are angry. Some say it's the Nile, still low. Others blame the failed marriage alliance, or the poisoned lion scandal. One bold priest even whispers that your new tomb design is disrespectful to Osiris, because the ventilation shaft points toward the wrong constellation. Historians still argue whether eclipses genuinely sparked mass panic, or if that's a later invention by overly dramatic scribes. But you're here now, standing in the middle of one, and it feels very real. The ritual begins. Drums thud, incense clouds rise. You are given a sacred torch, lit from a flame said to be carried from the temple of Karnak generations ago. You wave it in slow, choreographed arcs, while chanting ancient verses no one fully understands. Somewhere in the crowd a woman faints. Your voice cracks on the final line, but the wind covers it. Then the moon moves on. The sky lightens. The sun returns. Everyone exhales. You do too, but internally. For now, you're safe. But the eclipse was more than a celestial hiccup. It was a reminder. The gods demand performance, and the people expect perfection. You mess up the timing by a second, the river dries. You forget a chant syllable, the sun disappears. You've been playing this game long enough to know the truth. Every drought, every illness, every eclipse, it all falls back on you. That night you meet with the astronomers. They're sweaty, disheveled, and wildly defensive. "We were tracking Venus," one says. "We didn't expect this eclipse," says another. "We thought the next one was next season." You nod and say, "You were wrong." They fall silent. One gulps so hard it echoes. You don't punish them, yet. Fear is useful. Public failure, less so. Later, your chief priest suggests a festival to cleanse the omen. You agree. Why not? You've thrown parties for less. Preparations begin immediately. You name it, the Festival of Celestial Harmony. Everyone smiles like it's a good idea. Half of them don't know what harmony means, but they'll pretend. The idea is simple. Sing enough, burn enough incense, and the gods forget they were ever mad. You send messengers to nearby provinces, inviting nobles, temple elites, and even a few foreign merchants. You need a good turnout. You need to remind the kingdom that the gods still smile on you, even if the sky does. But while the festival preparations unfold, something else simmers beneath it. Dreams. You start having them again. Dark water. You wake sweating, fingers clenched, blanket tangled around your legs. You ask the court dream reader. He pulls at his beard and says, "Clearly, the Nile is mirroring your inner spirit." "Thanks, that helps." Mecca isn't sleeping well either. She stalks more, paces, growls at shadows. You wonder if she's dreaming the same things. In the meantime, the priests create new omens to counter the eclipse's effect. They tie reeds into stars, burn blue lotus with cassia bark. One sacrifices a pigeon while chanting your 57 royal titles backward. Everyone claps. You feel like a piñata with a crown. But the people calm down. And that, in the end, is the job. By the third night after the eclipse, the skies are clear, the Nile stirs, slightly. The astrologers claim the flood might still come. The omens are now slightly optimistic. You sit by the riverbank, alone except for your lion. You throw pebbles, watch the ripples, and you say quietly, "They want miracles." Mecca doesn't reply. You lean your head back, look at the stars. You wonder if they're laughing, or just blinking indifferently. You've got a festival to host tomorrow. Drums to beat, crowds to charm, gods to please. But tonight, for a few minutes, you can be what you rarely get to be. Just a man, waiting for the river to rise. You sit very, very still. Because two scribes are sketching your face. Not just sketching, immortalizing. Every freckle, every wrinkle, every decorative bead braided into your sideburns. One is crouched near your chin, muttering something about optimal jawline curvature. The other just keeps whispering, "Don't blink, don't blink." You blink. He sighs, like you just knocked over a temple. Welcome to day one of your public inscription series, a full mural cycle of your glory. The walls of the Hall of Records are being freshly plastered, and your image will soon be carved and painted for eternity, or until some future ruler chisels your nose off. Because that's how this works. You don't get to choose your legacy, you just get to pose for it. Today's scene, the Divine One, smiter of chaos, bringer of grain. Never mind that you've had to ration grain. Never mind that your lion nearly ate a tax official last week. The point is, optics. And that means posturing. The murals must show you, taller than everyone else. Calm under pressure. Always victorious, even in events that never happened. One scribe suggests you be depicted slaying 6 Libyans with 1 javelin. You ask, "When did I do that?" He smiles and says, "Not yet." You stare at him, he coughs, moves on. Fact of the day. Pharaohs routinely commissioned murals and inscriptions that exaggerated or outright invented events. These weren't lies. They were aspirational truths. You didn't just tell history, you sculpted it. You're brought into the main chamber to review progress. Your face is already half carved onto one wall. The eyes are good, the mouth less so. You look vaguely confused, like someone just told you the temple budget tripled, which, in fairness, is often the case. You point, "Make me look less surprised." The artist nods and adds another bead to your headdress. You didn't ask for it, but apparently it adds gravitas. Then comes the scene where you restore divine order. It involves you standing triumphantly over a crocodile with a crown. There's no context. Just you, foot on reptile, face serene. You laugh. Was I supposed to have wrestled Sobek himself? Your scribe shrugs. It's metaphor. Right. Next scene. Your coronation. This one's trickier. The priests want to add golden rays shining directly from your skull. The astronomers say the angle of the sun is wrong. The painter says too much gold makes you blend into the background. It becomes a bickering match so absurd, you almost enjoy it. Almost. Then someone casually mentions your fall during the chariot ceremony. You freeze. A young assistant, barely old enough to shave, says, "We were told to avoid showing any instability." You nod slowly. Good. Very good. Inside you burn a little. The fact that it's even being discussed, that it's part of the Whispered Palace record, means you've already lost ground. You walk out of the mural chamber and find the head scribe waiting. He asks which version of your divine titles you'd like carved above the main door. There are over 50. Few pick 3. Beloved of the two lands. He who commands the horizon. Voice of a moon, unshaken. You make sure the last one is carved in the largest font. Later, in private, your steward presents a problem. The pigment used for your skin tone, dark, rich ochre, has run out. They only have a lighter shade left. He mumbles something about trade delays and symbolic consistency. He stared at him. You'll wait for the correct pigment. He bows, embarrassed. Because that's not a small thing. You're a Black Pharaoh. From Kush. From here. Your skin isn't a detail, it's identity. Authority. A direct rejection of those Thebans up north who still call you the outsider. Historians still argue whether skin tone in these murals was symbolic or literal, but for you it's personal. You won't be remembered as beige. After lunch, stewed goat, flatbread, sweet beer. You're pulled into another chamber to sit for the sculptors. Stone busts this time. For temple display. One artist keeps muttering, "Nose symmetry, nose symmetry." Another is obsessed with getting your earlobes regal. You try to be patient, until one of them asks, "Should we show you smiling or stern?" You think. Smile, and they remember you as kind. Stern, and they remember you as strong. But in truth, you're tired. So you say, "Give me the look I wear when people pretend not to understand direct orders." They all nod, instantly. By evening, your image is everywhere, on clay seals, painted tiles, embroidered banners. It's like living inside your own biography. But the more you see it, the more distant it feels. This version of you is flawless, muscles taut, eyes wise, robes never wrinkled. There's no depiction of you hunched over a tax scroll at midnight, or snapping at a servant for tracking sand into your bathing room. There's no picture of the time you accidentally called your second wife by the wrong name. And definitely nothing about the nightmares. You return to your quarters, where Mecca sleeps soundly on a woven mat. You sink beside her, exhale, and whisper. "They're carving a man I don't recognize." She yawns. You imagine your tomb centuries from now, Tourists tracing your painted face with a finger, scholars translating your inscriptions, debating what kind of man you were. No one will mention the broken sandal strap, the missed meals, the quiet doubt. Just murals of a king who never blinked. A man is screaming your name. Not in reverence, not in prayer, not even in fear. He's howling it through cracked lips as guards drag him into the palace gates, his tunic soaked, face streaked with dust and salt. He's a farmer, one of yours. They drop him at your feet as you sit in the courtyard trying to finish your morning figs. He crawls on all fours, then collapses. The grain is gone, he gasps. Rotten. The stores are cursed. My children. He doesn't finish. You wave off the guards and offer water. He drinks like he's drowning in reverse. Your advisors want to dismiss him. One whispers that public cries like this should be silenced. Bad for morale. Another offers to relocate the man quietly. You do neither. You ask him to explain. He does. There was a minor flood months ago, too low to spread but just high enough to spoil. Worms got into the grain bins. The harvest dried too early. What little they salvaged rotted in clay jars that cracked under the sun. Now he's here. His village sent him, barefoot and desperate, to cry in the name of every empty belly back home. The palace falls silent. Even Mecca stops chewing her bone. Because this isn't isolated, you've heard the reports, but they always come smoothed over, translated into percentages and numbers. This is different. This is someone shaking in front of you, begging for wheat. You dismiss the court for the day and begin the reckoning. You summon your grainmaster. He looks nervous. He should be. You ask how many stores are left. He says, enough to feed the palace and temples. For now. Villages. He doesn't answer. So you dig deeper. Inventory scrolls from 3 provinces show the same story. Miscounted supplies, spoiled batches, caravan disruptions. And one very clear pattern. Temples receiving triple the grain of the common people. Why? You demand. Because the gods must eat, your high priest replies, smug and unflinching. You pause. You think the gods eat wheat? He nods. Symbolically. You rub your temples, and real children starve. Symbolically. He says nothing. The silence answers for him. You issue new orders immediately. Grain to be redistributed based on need, not ritual. Temples to open their sealed reserves. Caravan guards doubled. Rations sent directly to border villages by royal messengers. Your men, not priests. The priest glares. The scribes scribble. You're declaring war, not on a kingdom, on imbalance. And in this place, imbalance is a crime against divinity. Fact of the day, pharaohs were seen as divine because they upheld Mat, the cosmic order. But Mat isn't just stars and silence. It's food, fairness, and justice on the ground. A hungry people means a broken world, and that blame falls squarely on you. That evening, an old woman arrives. She doesn't kneel, she doesn't bow, she simply holds out a sack half filled with crumbled bread and says, "What am I supposed to do with this?" You take it. It's mouldy, unfit for even dogs. You say, "You'll have new grain within 3 days." She narrows her eyes. "I've heard that before." You meet her gaze, "Not from me." She spits, not at you, just into the sand. Then she walks away. You stand there, holding the sack. And then you get really, really angry. Not performative anger, not divine wrath. Real, chest-tightening, stomach-churning anger. Because all this power, all this ceremony, all this ritual, it's useless if people still cry themselves to sleep with empty stomachs. You gather your personal guards. You ride. No warning, no banners, no gold, straight to the outskirts. It's worse than you feared. Children with distended bellies, rice water instead of bread. Old men crushing date pits to flavor porridge. A mother singing to a child who's already too quiet. They don't recognize you at first. You're dusty, tired, crownless. But then someone gasps, someone kneels, and a ripple spreads through the crowd like lightning under the skin. You walk through the village. You touch shoulders, lift sacks, taste the same bitter stew they eat. You promise food. You mean it. Back at the palace, the grain starts moving, from vaults, from temples, from the private reserves of smug noblemen who suddenly realize they've been seen. You hold a public ceremony at the temple gate. You walk in, alone, and place your staff across the temple's gold-rimmed altar. A gesture of submission, not to the priests, but to the people. You say, "If the gods want to punish me for feeding their children, let them." Thunder cracks, just once, loud, then silence. Historians still argue whether that was a coincidence or a divine response. You know what it felt like? Permission. That night, as Mecca lays her heavy head on your lap, you stare out into the desert. It's still dry. The Nile is still low, but your people ate today. And that, for now, is enough. You sit at the high table, alone. Food is laid before you. Dates, lentils, roasted pigeon, sweet beer in a silver cup. But none of it looks right. None of it tastes like anything. You take one bite, then another, and stop. You're not hungry. You're watching. Because lately, you don't trust what's on your plate. Trust much of anything. Earlier this morning, a servant handed you a cup of tamarind juice. Nothing unusual. You drink tamarind most mornings. But Mecca growled, low and long. You paused, tasted the rim. Nothing strange. You handed it to your food taster. He went pale. Within an hour, he was vomiting in the courtyard. Alive, but barely. You called for the cup. Smelled it again. Still nothing. Whatever it was. Tasteless, senseless, clever. Someone is trying again. And they're getting better. You used to joke that being Pharaoh meant everyone wanted to be you. Now, it just means everyone wants to replace you. Your guards are doubled. Your food is tested 3 times. Every servant is questioned. Every door checked. And yet, the poison still slipped in. And if it weren't for Mecca. You look down at her now. She dozes beneath the table, twitching. Not sleeping, really. Never fully at ease anymore. You're not sure you are either. The palace is quieter these days. Too quiet. Even the walls seem to breathe a little slower. Everyone's waiting. You feel it in every sideways glance, every overly formal greeting, every too deep bow that lingers just a second longer than it should. So now, you don't just rule, you suspect. Everyone. Your cousin accidentally forgot to bow yesterday. A guard fell asleep at his post outside the grain room. A priest slipped a strange amulet under your pillow. He said it was for protection. It looked like a trap. You had him reassigned to a temple far upriver, one known for snake infestations. You received reports daily now, not of military threats, but palace gossip. A servant sneaks food to the courtyard at midnight. A lady in waiting has a scar that looks like a foreign brand. Your brother is back, again. That last one sticks. Your brother. The one who wanders in and out of royal circles like he's allergic to responsibility. Last time he visited, he left with a jeweled dagger and a poet who vanished 2 days later. Now he's in the city again, holding discussion salons and handing out wine. You summon him. He arrives late, wearing a leopard skin cloak and a grin that says he knows exactly what he's doing. He bows, lazily. Brother, you look regal. You say nothing. He walks around your throne like a lion sniffing for weakness. I hear you've been troubled, he says. Poison, priests, public complaints. Sounds exhausting. You nod. It is. He leans in, whispers. You should let someone help carry the weight. You lean back. You volunteering. He smiles wider, just thinking aloud. You ask what he wants. He says nothing, just sips from your wine cup without permission and walks out humming. You make a note to have his room searched. Later that evening, your steward finds a bundle hidden beneath a floor tile near the guest wing. Spiced meat, wine, and a scroll. The scroll is written in code. When decoded, it reads, "He sleeps too light. The lion is more loyal than the guards." You tighten your grip on the reed. Someone's leaking, someone's whispering, someone is daring to test the limits of your crown. So you do what every king must, eventually. You lie. You host a feast. Lavish, loud, open to all the nobles. An apology for recent tensions, a celebration of your people's resilience. You say the Nile will rise soon. You say the gods are pleased. You say nothing of the man who's being questioned in the cellar right now. And eats, drinks, dances. You watch. Who drinks too little? Who glances at the guards? Who makes eye contact with your brother and looks away? You spot 3, quietly marked, quietly removed before dessert. Historians still argue whether the palace purges during your reign were real or just exaggerated tales told by bitter survivors. But you know the truth. It wasn't purging. It was pruning. You don't enjoy it. You don't revel in it. But power, true power, isn't about glory. It's about survival. And sometimes surviving means out-paranoiing everyone else in the room. You return to your chambers at dawn, exhausted, still alert. Mecca trails behind you. You lock the door yourself. You kneel by the window, listening to the wind move through the reeds. Soft, unthreatening, but even that sound makes your heart race. You're Pharaoh, the chosen, divine by blood, law, and birth. And now, you're just trying to outlive breakfast. You stand in the shadow of your newest monument, staring up at a stone version of your own face. It's huge, 3 stories tall, perfectly symmetrical, jawline chiseled like it was drawn by a god with something to prove. You're gazing at a younger, idealized version of yourself, a version that doesn't twitch when figs arrive unasked, or flinch when someone mentions the priesthood. This monument cost more than 3 provincial tax shipments combined. It took 900 workers, 14 stone haulers, and 1 architect with an ego big enough to argue with you about nostril proportions. You smile. The scribes behind you take that as a sign of approval. They begin writing. He who cast his image in stone so that the gods might tremble when they see it. A bit much, but you let it slide. You need the drama, because your legacy, it's a mess. And you're trying, desperately, to make it last longer than you will. You order 3 more monuments, 1 to mark your victory in that skirmish near Elephantine, even though it lasted 1 day and you mostly just yelled from a safe distance. Another to mark your birthday. And the 3rd, that one's purely symbolic, the foundation of everlasting order. No one really knows what it's supposed to represent. But it sounds good, feels big, and in the age of sand and silence, big is the only thing that echoes. Here's a dirty secret of kingship. Half of legacy is marketing. And you're pushing hard. You issue decrees for more stelae, carved, story stones, to be placed in every major temple from Napata to Thebes. Each one will depict a chapter of your reign, carefully edited. The Nile, always full. The priests, always loyal. The enemies, always trembling. You, always righteous. Never mind the drought, never mind the starvation, or the attempted poisonings, or the brother who now vacations near the border with a few too many camels for comfort. Truth is, if you don't write your own story, someone else will. And they won't be kind. You walk the avenue of statues, the ones of past rulers. Some faces are pristine, others defaced. Noses chipped off, eyes scratched out, names rewritten. The ancient crime of damnatio memoriae, erasure by chisel. One king, your ancestor, once ruled for 20 years, built a temple, won a battle, was buried in gold. Now, he's just the scratched one. You mutter under your breath, I will not be scratched. God hears you, pretends he didn't. You call your artists, ask for your name to be carved deeply, deeper than normal, deeper than necessary. It must take a hammer to erase me, you say. They nod, nervously. You add, and make my eyes sharper. No one asks what you mean. They know. You return to your quarters to find your steward waiting, scroll in hand. He says softly, a new prophecy is circulating. You groan. What now? Crops of fire, moon blood. He shakes his head. Worse. He reads aloud. The king builds towers to reach the gods, but the sand does not remember height. You stare. It's not an attack, not directly. It's a warning, a poetic punch to the gut. They were saying, none of this matters. That all your stone and sweat and sacrifice will vanish. That sand wins. That history forgets. You dismiss him, sit on your stone bench, breathe slow. You think about those earlier rulers, the ones whose names are half remembered, the ones no one visits anymore. You wonder what they thought in their last days. Did they believe the legacy would hold? Did they believe stone could outlast silence? It pads in. She rests her head on your lap. Your hands find her ears automatically. She growls low, not at danger, at something else. Tiredness. You whisper, they'll remember you longer than they'll remember me. She thumps her tail. Probably agreement. Later, in a rare moment of impulse, you sneak out of the palace. Just you and a hooded robe. You wander the market, no guards, no crown, just the noise of common life. You hear people speak your name, you hear praise, but also doubt, frustration. One old man says, he builds too much, spends too wide. I liked his father better. You slip back into the palace before they see you. You don't get angry. You get quiet. Because you know the truth. Legacy is a scam. A story told by survivors who decide what parts get remembered. And most of them, they weren't even there. You start to understand why some kings turned to madness, why others gave up, why one ancestor became a monk and vanished into the hills, leaving the crown to a cousin with a pet snake and no people skills. Still, you can't stop. You order a golden obelisk, taller than any in the region. You order your name inlaid with crushed garnet. You issue a decree that no monument built in your reign can bear the name of any rival. Ever. You ask for more statues, not of yourself this time, of Mecca. At least she never lied. That night you sit on the temple roof again, watching stars slip through cloud gaps. The wind smells like dust and lemon leaves. You think, maybe legacy isn't what they remember, maybe it's what they can't forget. A crown, a name, a lion by your side. You whisper to the sky, remember this. The wind shifts. It smells like copper, dust, something sharp beneath the usual Nile breeze. You know this scent. It's not just the dry season stretching longer than it should. It's change. Your palace messengers arrive with scrolls clutched in sweaty fists, their sandals worn from days of sprinting. Their news is the kind that doesn't wait for ceremony. Your temple in Elephantine has been desecrated. The outer wall, burned. The statue of Amun, broken in half. The priest in residence, missing. Possibly fled. Possibly dragged into the river. The scribes want your reaction. The generals want orders. The priests want blood. You give them none of it. Not yet. You're too busy thinking about the symbolism. Not the temple, that's replaceable. It's the message that matters. It wasn't just destruction, it was a correction. a warning carved in flame. You read the rebel inscription they left behind, scrawled in broken Demotic. This land forgets the names of southern kings. There it is again. The whisper that's chased you since your coronation, the same one Theban priests murmur behind fans, the one your own nobles sometimes repeat when they think you're asleep. You don't belong here. Fact of the day, even during the height of the 25th dynasty, many Egyptian elites viewed the Kushite pharaohs as interlopers, temporary kings wearing borrowed crowns. They accepted their power, but not always their legitimacy. You've spent years building monuments, fighting wars, feeding the hungry, crushing rebellions, and still, here it is, the same ancient wound. You call your council. They argue, again. Some say it was local rebels, others insist on a Libyan plot. One suggests it was a message from the gods, offended by your innovations. You nearly throw your cup at him. Your general recommends razing the region, burn villages, salt the fields, make them fear your silence. Your priest proposes a ritual cleansing, symbolic, loud, useless. You ask, how long before they forget this happened? No one answers. That night you ride out. Not with an army, not in a gold-trimmed chariot, just you, your most trusted guards, and Mecca at your side. You ride north. Fast, quiet, no banners. You reach Elephantine in 3 days. What you find, not just rubble, but apathy. The locals don't mourn the temple. Some even seem relieved. One elder says, it was always too grand, didn't belong here. Didn't belong. You say nothing. Instead, you walk the ruins. The broken statue of Amun lies face down in the dirt, split down the middle like a tree trunk. Someone etched a line across your name too. Not deep. Not enough to erase. Just enough to mark it. You kneel beside it. You trace your own name with a fingertip. You could rebuild the temple. Bigger. Brighter. You could plant pillars taller than the old ones, lined with guards. You could order 10 new statues of Amun and position them to stare down anyone with doubts. But you don't. You turn to your guards. Bring me the village elders. They arrive, heads bowed, expecting wrath. Instead you speak gently, too gently. You've forgotten who I am, you say. One elder begins to apologize. You hold up a hand. Don't. You're not the only ones. They shift nervously. You say, I tried to be a pharaoh the way Egypt remembers. Gold, temples, crowns. But I was not made for mimicry. Silence. Then you add, I will remind you, not with stone, but with storms. They look confused. Until you give the real order. Pull back the garrisons. Yes, pull back. Let the rebels take over, briefly. Let them march around your empty temples. Let them think you're retreating. Because the next move is surprise. You return to Napata. You send no warnings, no threats. You let rumors do the work. Let fear grow in the vacuum of your silence. Then you strike. Quickly, brutally, just once. A swift campaign led by your elite guards. Your personal war band. No mercy, no fires, no speeches, just silence and sharp bronze. In less than a week, the rebellion collapses. You stand in the ruins of their stronghold. You find the same line etched on the wall. This land forgets the names of southern kings. A blade carved beneath it. Then we will write them in fire. You leave it there. You don't need monuments anymore. You need memory. You don't order a victory festival. No parades, no speeches. You simply appear, back in Napata, unscathed, taller, sharper-eyed, and say only, you remember now. The city kneels. But something inside you, it doesn't rise with them. You walk alone that night, Mecca trailing beside you, You pass your own monuments, statues with faces too perfect, words that now feel weightless. You ask her if they forget me. Was it ever real? Or she yawns. You laugh. Historians still argue whether your rule brought stability or fear, whether your legacy was built on justice or sheer force, but they all agree on one thing. After the fires of Elephantine, no one called you temporary again. You wake to quiet. Not the good kind, not the soft rustle of reeds or the lazy drone of insects over river water. This is the other kind, the thick, loaded stillness that settles before something cracks. It's the kind of silence that smells like iron. Your attendants are late. Your bath isn't drawn, your sandals aren't laid out. The hallway beyond your chamber doors has no footsteps, no hushed prayers, no scent of incense. You stand, alone, robe half wrapped, and listen. Then, one soft clang, metal on stone, somewhere nearby. You don't wait, you grab your knife. It's ornamental, it's small, it's not enough, but it's better than your bare hands. You open the door. The guards are there, 2 of them, but not your regulars. One is new, the other you haven't seen since your birthday feast, and even then he was already on probation for inappropriate bowing. They flinch when they see you. Where's Captain Soben, you ask. Patrolling the west wing, the taller one says, too fast. You nod. Then you rin. Far, just enough to reach the hidden corridor behind the lion courtyard. You knew this day would come. Everyone in power knows it's coming, just never when. So you built in the fail-safes. One stone door, no markings, one tug, it opens. You slip into the passage. Of course she does. You move through the palace like a ghost, hidden corridors, shadowed hallways. You hear the chaos rise behind you, shouts, scuffling, boots on tile. Someone has betrayed you. Again. But this time it's close. You reach your secure chamber, lock the doors, pull the emergency rope. Bells will ring from the stables. Your most loyal guards will come. You hope. Until then, you sit on the floor, back against stone, knife in your hand, lion at your side. You laugh once, quietly. So this is how it feels. To be hunted. To be alone. To be king and prey. You think back to your coronation. The priest's trembling voice. The scent of sweat under frankincense. The crown settling on your skull like a net you didn't know would tighten. You were divine, they said. But gods don't hide behind secret doors. They don't count breaths and blades and loyal faces like coins slipping between fingers. Outside you hear someone shout, "He's not in his chambers." Then, close but wrong. The irony? You had planned today's council meeting to review palace loyalty protocols. Too late. You light the small brazier, burn a sliver of cedar, calms the nerves, keeps the fear from curling too tight. You think about how power felt when you first held it. Heavy, yes, but glorious. All eyes on you, all voices silenced by your presence. You don't feel powerful, you feel targeted. You check the knife's edge. Still sharp. Go. Mecca rests her head on your thigh. She's calm, but her ears are twitching. Always listening. Dim footsteps. Fast, familiar. You grip the knife tighter. But it's Captain Soben. Bloody, limping, alive. He slams the inner door and pants, "Your brother." It's him. Of course it is. Didn't see it because it was too obvious, too theatrical. The salons, the poetry, the slow charm offensive, the fake indifference. While you were building monuments, he was building friends. He didn't want your throne. He just wanted you out of it. Sobin explains. He saw your brother enter the temple this morning, cloaked, whispering to 3 nobles, ones you thought were neutral. Your food taste as illness, bought. Your steward's recent silence, bribed. It's not just a coup. It's a replacement. You're not to be killed, yet. You're to be removed for spiritual cleansing, exiled, forgotten, blessed. But now they've missed their chance. Think. You've been too passive, too ceremonial, too Egyptian, almost. Now, you'll rule like a Kushite again. With fear. With speed. With a message no chisel can erase. You and Sobin exit the chamber. Mecca follows, tail high. You storm through the hidden passage to the guard barracks. Sound the alarm, declare war within your own walls. Your loyalists rally. It's over in hours. 3 traitors dead. 6 exiled. 1 brother famished. You don't find him. Just a scroll in your throne room. A single line. A crown is only worn until someone dares to reach for it. You burn the note and order his name removed from every family record. You sit on your throne. You bleed from 1 cut, thin, shallow across the palm. A scratch from pushing open a door too fast. It stings, but it proves something. Even now, the gods haven't turned you to stone. You're still a man. And as a man, you've just survived the moment that would have ended most kings. If you think of all the rulers before you, names sanded away, replaced, overwritten, you smile, louved. But the price? You'll never feel safe again. You're still standing. But now the air tastes different, like the aftershock of lightning when everything's been scorched and the world goes still. You've survived a coup, again. You've reinforced your walls, your guard, your spine. You've watched traitors hauled out by their feet there and heard their final prayers dissolve into dust. You won. But winning is not the same as peace. Your advisors speak in softer voices now, not out of respect, out of calculation. They know you've stopped warning before acting. They know the smile you wear at court is no longer a courtesy. It's camouflage. And the city? For bows lower than ever. But when you ride through the streets, you see something in their eyes. Not just fear, not just awe, but pulling away, quietly. Because they know what you know. The gods may protect you, but they also isolate you. You sit in the grand hall, where torchlight dances off pillars carved with your name. That name now echoes in places it shouldn't. In songs, in prayers, in children's games. You're a symbol, a warning, a wall between eras. And that wall is cracking. The Nile has risen, finally, late, weak, and angry. The water creeps across the fields like it's reconsidering its loyalty. The priests proclaim it a miracle, of course. You play along, publicly. But you know better. The river remembers everything. A messenger arrives from the north. You unroll the scroll. More unrest. Thebes again, old whispers, new pamphlets, carvings scratched in alleyways. Return Egypt to the blood of the Nile. That means them, not you. You sigh, deeply. Not from exhaustion, from knowing this never ends. You lean back in your throne. It no longer feels like a seat. It's more like armor you have to wear. You can't slouch, you can't rest, you can't blink. Because power doesn't sleep. You summon the royal record keeper. He arrives with ink-stained hands and 1,000 scrolls. He begins reciting your accomplishments. Temples built, cities fortified, enemies defeated, floods tamed, taxes redistributed, lions raised. You stop him. Tell me the worst thing ever written about me, you say. He hesitates, trembles. Then says, some claim you rule with fear, that your mercy is performance, that you wear a crown of silence. You nod, Record that. He does, a hand shaking. You ask for the scribe who records dreams. She comes forward, older, eyes clouded by time, always smelling of sage and dusk. She closes her eyes, breathes. See a man made of gold, she says, but the gold is flaking. Beneath it, they see themselves, hungry, watching. You dismiss her. You walk through your garden. Mecca follows, slow and limping now, age creeping into her bones. You sit by the pond where once, years ago, your second wife claimed to see her ancestors in the water. You don't see anything tonight, just frogs, just sky. Just a man who once believed in monuments more than memory. Facts of the day. Most pharaohs of the 25th dynasty had their names carved in stone, gilded with titles, and buried in pyramids south of the Nile. But within a few generations, many were erased, their faces chipped away, their lineage disputed. Historians still argue whether your line ever truly ruled Egypt, or if Egypt simply tolerated your reign until it could rewrite it. You rise. You walk to the temple once more, barefoot, no fanfare, just you and the sound of your own breath echoing off sandstone. Inside, you touch the altar. You don't pray. You don't ask. You tell the gods. Perfect. I was not always just, but I endured. I stayed. I fed the hungry, punished the traitors, kissed the babies, bled in the court. I stood. He paused. And if that's not enough, then may the next king do better. No answer comes. But that's how the gods work. They never answer until you're dead, and sometimes not even then. The next morning you begin drafting your final orders. Your successor's name, the council structure, the command that your tomb remain unsealed for 3 years, just in case. The lion's statue, to be placed at your feet, eyes facing east. You seal the scroll with wax, press your ring into it. You sit on the edge of your bed, staring at the space where the crown usually rests. You don't put it on. He just breathed. And for once no one knocks, no one calls, no one demands. The palace sleeps. And so, finally, do you. The palace fades. The torchlight softens to amber. The river hums low, steady again. The people of Napata sleep in their reed homes, bellies full, fires low, prayers whispered just loud enough for the stars to hear. Your lion old and regal, sleeps curled beside the throne you once ruled from. Her breaths are slow now, deeper, like waves brushing the banks of the Nile in rhythm with time itself. The murals on your walls remaining faces half smiling, arms outstretched, stone remembering what flesh always forgets. No one chiseled them away. Not yet. The sand hasn't reclaimed them. Not tonight. Outside, the desert wind drifts like silk over the temple roofs. Palm fronds sway in silence. Somewhere a fig tree drops its fruit and a frog stirs lazily in the grass. Even the gods are quiet. You are no longer giving orders, no longer watched, no longer needed. But you are not gone. You are still there in the dust, in the gold, in the breath of the people who chant your name when they think no one is listening. You were Pharaoh. And maybe that wasn't enough. But it was something. So now, close your eyes. Let the Nile carry you softly. Let the stars blur into one long sleep. The battles are done. The voices are fading. You've done all you can. You've earned the silence. The story ends here. Close your eyes. Drift deep. Sweet dreams.